And we are live. And we are live.
Ladies and gentlemen, please rise as you're able and join me in the welcoming of City Council, the playing of the National Anthem, and the reading of the Invocation.
Would you please remain standing as you're able for the reading of the invocation? As we come together today, we recognize the great responsibilities laid upon us. Our council will always strive to understand the needs of the people we serve and to use power wisely and well. Our purpose is to establish and maintain a city of prosperity and righteousness where freedom prevails and where justice rules. Let us also not forget those who've served our community who are no longer with us so that we can continue to do the work that we must in their memory. Please be seated. So tonight we have staff providing us assistance. To my right, City Clerk Tanya Daniels. Behind us, Lisa Madden from Clerks. And also to my left, IT support, this very critical Norris Ford. There, right behind me. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Certainly, Councillor Wall.
Present.
Councillor Antosky. Here. Councillor Martin.
Here.
Councillor Vanderstel.
Present.
Councillor Van Tilburg.
Present.
Councillor McCreary.
Here.
Councillor Otley.
Present.
Councillor Carpenter.
Here.
Councillor Sless.
Present.
Mayor Davis.
Present. I'd like to remind members of council staff and our viewing public of the electronic participation policy for virtual meetings. All staff and delegates are asked to keep their video on and their microphones off until requested by the moderator or chair. All rules for delegations under the city's procedural bylaw otherwise continue to apply. Full corporate policy 50 regarding electronic visual participation in meetings is available online, city's website for review. Councillors, you'll now have full control of the microphones going forward. So members of in-council chamber should raise their hand physically to be added to the speakers list and not to drop your hand until you see you've caught my eye or the clerk's eye, who will then tell me. And you should only turn on your microphone when it's your speaking opportunity, unlike what we did previously, which was you would push the microphone button if you wanted to speak. Members participating virtually, you should continue to use the raised hand function button, please. Please note that it's best practice to have one microphone on at a time when possible in order to have an optimal experience of the audio and visual equipment in the room. So we'll have to do a lot of turning and pushing of buttons now. So we'll move on to declarations of a conflict of interest. Understand there are members that have to declare a conflict. And there's also one that I wish to declare, which I did previously at the Committee of the Whole. When I call your name, would you please indicate the item you wish to declare conflict on and state the nature of your conflict? Councillor Vanderstel, I think it's item 12.3.2.
You are correct, Mr. Mayor. My pecuniary interest is the proposed development is within 250 meters of Serenity Country Candles, our family-run business. Thank you.
Councilor McCreary, I believe you have a similar conflict.
Item 12.3.2, Mayor, I have a conflict of interest with respect to a property that I own within the planning district guidelines, and as well as Councilor Vanderstilt with the applicable bylaws.
Yeah, I also am declaring a conflict in item 12.2.5, item 3, the Echo Place neighborhood review, and the associated bylaws 62 and 63, 2022. This relates to changes in traffic flows and parking requirements, et cetera, in my immediate neighborhood. And although probably it's not a pecuniary interest for, I think for erring on the side of caution, I'm declaring a conflict. And so when we get to that portion of the meeting, Councilor Utley, I will we'll have that separated. I'll have to ask you to chair that part of the meeting. So members, are there any other conflicts that anyone needs to declare on any item that's appearing on the agenda this evening? So seeing no such raised hands. All right, we'll move into the separation of items in the committee reports for discussion purposes. As a reminder, urgent reports are dealt with individually. And we do have the following items that are already separated. So there's 12.2.5, the Vision Zero Road Safety Committee report. Item 1 dealing with Erie Avenue roadway improvements because we have a delegation. Item 12.2.5, it's item 3, the Vision Zero Road Safety Committee report because of the conflict I just indicated. 12.2.7, which is the crossing guard request. There's an amendment coming from Councillor Martin. Then we have 12.3.2, that's the zoning bylaw amendment, 248, 260 Grand River Ave. There are 2 conflicts, and I believe we also have a delegation. Then there's 12.3.10, which is honoring Kevin Finney, the late Director of Economic Development. And that was deferred from our last meeting. And there's a motion to waive the rules in order to hear that tonight. And then there is 12.5.1, which is Downtown Brantford Improvement Task Force Priority Plan. And there's an amendment I want to put on the floor for that. So are there any other items contained within the committee reports that anybody wants separated for discussion purposes? Councilor McCreary.
Mayor, 12.3.9.
That's the Police Services Board Public Engagement. Okay. Councilor Martin?
Yeah, item 12.2.8 and 12.3.8.
Sorry, 12.2.8, did you say?
Correct. And 12.3.8.
So 12.3.8, that's the OLT, Ontario Land Tribunal?
Correct.
Okay,
And the rent safe Brantford.
right. I think we have that as 12.2.7. Is that right, Madam Clerk? The rent safe? It's 8? Okay. Okay. Not seeing any other hands in the council chambers, not seeing any hands raised at home virtually. So we have the list. So let's move on. Councilor Utley, can you please a motion to approve all the items in committee reports not separated for discussion purposes?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Moved by myself and seconded by my ward mate, Councillor John Sless, that all items contained with your committee report within the committee reports, items 12.1 to 12.5, not separated for discussion purposes, be approved. Thank you.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, would you please read the title of the items that we're now voting on before we take the vote?
Certainly. So the matter is subject to this vote from your committee reports. Human Resources, 12.1.1, Parks and Facility Services Adjustments in Arenas and Parks. From your Committee of the Whole Operations, 12.2.1, Excess Soil Management Regulation Update. 12.2.2, Elgin Street Multi-Use Path. 12.2.3, Joint Use Agreement with Grand Erie District School Board and update regarding negotiations with Brant Holdeman Norfolk District School Board. 12.2.4, Museum Funding Agreement with Glenhurst Art Gallery. From 12.2.5, items 2, Forsyth Avenue traffic calming. Item 4, Gray Street and Murray Street. Item 5, Johnson Road traffic. From 12.2.6, the municipal cultural plan. From Committee of the Whole Planning and Administration, 12.3.1, application for zoning bylaw amendment, 9 Garden Avenue. 12.3.3, notice of objection to inclusion of 90-100 Colburn Street on the City of Brantford's Heritage Register as a non-designated listed property. 12.3.4, Heritage Register Project Part 2, Phase C, properties recommended for listing. 12.3.5, comments on the report of the Ontario Housing Affordability Task Force and related provincial implementation initiatives. 12.3.6, Community Heritage and Cultural Space Task Force Report. 12.3.7, 2021 year-end report on building permit fees. From your Finance Committee, 12.4.1, quarterly reserve and reserve fund update. 12.4.2, 2021 development charges reserve fund continuity report. 12.4.3, preliminary 2021 year-end variance report. 12.4.4, treasurer's 2021 statement for cash in lieu Parkland Reserve Fund. 12.4.5, hospice operations. Those are all your items.
Point of order, Mr. Mayor, please.
Sorry, pardon, Councillor Carpenter?
Yes, I've just realized in 12.4.5 is a recommendation for funding for hospice. My daughter-in-law worked for that, so I'll declare a conflict on that one, please. Thank you.
Fair enough. So we'll take that out of the omnibus motion, please, Madam Clerk, and we'll deal with that separately.
All items not separated for discussion purposes have carried on a record of 10-0. Those voting in favor, Councillor Antosky, Martin, Utley, Vanderstelt, Wall, Van Tilburg, Sless, Mercury, Carpenter, Mayor Davis.
All right, so there are no statutory public hearings or recognitions of achievement on the agenda for this evening, but we do have 6 proclamations this evening. Councillor Van Tilburg, I think you have the resolution to approve the proclamations. Would you please state your seconder and read the motion?
Moved by myself, seconded by my ward mate, Councillor Wall, that the following proclamations be approved. 8.1, Apraxia Awareness Day. 8.2, Emergency Preparedness Week. 8.3, Community Living Month. 8.4, North American Occupational Safety and Health Week. 8.5, W. Roth Mcdonald School 150th anniversary. 8.6, Building Safety Month.
Thank you. So we'll go through and have the individual members of council read the proclamations. First one, Councillor Vanderstelt, item 8.1.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Whereas childhood apraxia of speech is a challenging speech disorder that affects nearly 1 in 1,000 children, and whereas children with childhood apraxia of speech will not learn to speak without frequent, intensive, and appropriate speech therapy, and whereas a lack of appropriate speech therapy intervention may impact not only communication, but also individual outcomes in education, independence, mental wellness, and employment. And whereas public awareness about childhood apraxia of speech in Brantford is essential for families of children with childhood apraxia of speech, and the professionals who support them to best advocate for needed services for children learning to use their own voice. And whereas our highest respect goes to children with childhood apraxia of speech and to their families for their effort, determination, and resilience in the face of obstacles. And now therefore be resolved that the Council of the Corporation of the City of Brantford hereby proclaims May 14th, 2022 as Apraxia Awareness Day in the City of Brantford. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Now move to the next item. That's Councillor Martin, item 8.2, please.
Thank you. whereas the city of Brantford recognizes the importance of emergency management in Ontario, and whereas the goal of Emergency Preparedness Week is to raise community awareness and the need to prepare for the possibility of an emergency, including the benefits of making an emergency plan and building a 72-hour emergency preparedness kit. And whereas although focused on personal preparedness, Emergency Preparedness Week also carries messages for business owners and essential service providers, including the benefits and need for business continuity planning, as well as updating emergency plans to better ensure community preparedness. And whereas all levels of government have an important role to play in emergency preparedness and response, but ultimately the safety of our community is the responsibility of each and every one of us, and we must prepare now to build a resilient tomorrow. And whereas climate change is increasing the frequency and impact of natural disasters to every municipality, making it more important than ever to ensure that we as a community are prepared for any disaster. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Council of the Corporation of the City of Brantford hereby proclaims the week of May 1st to the 7th, 2022 as Emergency Preparedness Week in the City of Brantford, and encourages all citizens to participate in education activities on emergency preparedness.
Thank you, Councillor Martin. Councillor Wall, if you could read the next item, 8.3.
8.3 Community Living Month. Whereas Community Living Brant and Community Living Six Nations Lona-Descouts are celebrating in the month of May Community Living Month in the province of Ontario, and whereas Community Living Month is a time to reflect and acknowledge all of the people from across Ontario and celebrate the many successes of creating inclusive communities for people with developmental disabilities, and whereas Community Living Brant and Community Living Six Nations Lona-Descouts provides a wide range of services, including life share community support services, group living, literacy, early on child and family center, respite, supported employment, passport funding, and belonging Brant, all with the goal of supporting adults who access our services with achieving their dreams and goals. And whereas Community Living Brant and Community Living Six Nations Lona-Descouts envisions a welcoming community where all are encouraged to reach their full potential, and whereas Community Living Brant and Community Living Six Nations Lona-Descouts provides a vital service for Brant County and Six Nations credit communities, serving over 600 plus individuals with developmental disabilities. And now therefore be it resolved that the Council of the Corporation of the City of Brantford hereby proclaims the month of May as Community Living Month in the City of Brantford.
Thank you, Councillor Wall. We'll now to Councillor Celeste, item 8.4, the North American Occupational Safety and Health Week.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. North American Occupational Safety and Health Week. Whereas May 1 through 7 is this year's North American Occupational Safety and Health Week, employers, government, and workers in Canada, the United States, and Mexico will join forces to promote greater awareness of the importance of preventing accidents in occupational workplace. And whereas the goal of the North American Occupational Safety and Health Week activities and events is to focus the attention of all stakeholders on this important topic and encourage them to equip themselves with tools, information, and knowledge. Educate each other with positive attitudes and behaviors that will convey commitment and confidence at work, at home, and in the community. And whereas in order to achieve this goal, all stakeholders must take responsibility for occupational health and safety prevention. And whereas this week provides the opportunity to renew commitment, dedication, and investment in occupational safety and health, as well as education and training programs in the prevention of accidents, injuries, and illness. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Council of the Corporation of the City of Brantford hereby proclaims the week of May 1 through May 7th as North American Occupational Safety and Health Week in the City of Brantford.
Thank you, Councillor Celeste. Councillor Carpenter, you have the W. Ross Mcdonald School.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Whereas the W. Ross Mcdonald School for the Blind and Deafblind at 350 Brant Avenue opened its doors to students on May 1st, 1872. And whereas students came from all over Canada, including the Atlantic, the Arctic, Rockies, Quebec, and British Columbia. And whereas the school was renamed W. Ross Mcdonald School after Brantford resident and former Lieutenant Governor of Ontario, William Ross Mcdonald. And whereas today the provincial school educates children aged 4 to 21 who are blind, have low vision, or are deafblind from all across Ontario and Canada, giving students individualized and unique learning experiences, including full access to the expanded core curriculum. And whereas the school has vast alumni, including world-renowned musicians and athletes, now therefore be resolved that the Council of the Corporate City of Brantford hereby proclaims May 1st, 2022 as the 150th anniversary of the W. Ross Mcdonald School, a school with a rich history, expertise, and excellence, and that we can all celebrate and be very proud of. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Carpenter. Councillor McCurry, you have the last item, Building Safety Month.
Mayor, thank you. Whereas Ontario municipalities are committed to recognizing that our growth and strength depends on the safety and essential role our homes, buildings, and infrastructure play both in everyday life and when disasters strike. And whereas our confidence in the structural integrity of these buildings that make our communities are achieved through the devotion of vigilant guardians, building officials, fire prevention officials, architects, engineers, builders, tradespeople, design pros, and others in the construction industry who work year-round to ensure the safe construction of buildings. And whereas modern building codes include safeguards to protect the public from hazards such as hurricanes, snowstorms, tornadoes, floods, and earthquakes, and whereas Building Safety Month, a campaign launched by the International Code Council and supported by the large municipalities of chief building officials and the Ontario Building Officials Association, is intended to remind the public about the critical role of our community's largely unknown protectors of public safety, our local code officials, who assure us of safe, sustainable, and affordable buildings that are essential to our prosperity. And whereas Safety for All, Codes in Action, the theme for Building Safety Month 2022, encourages all to raise awareness about planning for safe and sustainable construction, career opportunities in building safety, understanding disaster mitigation, energy conservation, and creating a safe and abundant water supply to our benefit. And whereas each year in observance of Building Safety Month, people all over the world are asked to consider the commitment to improve building safety, resilience, and economic investment at home and in the community, and to acknowledge the essential service provided to all of us by our building regulatory departments, fire prevention bureaus, national and international agencies in protecting lives and property. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Corporation of the City of Brantford hereby proclaims the month of May 2022 as Building Safety Month, or accordingly, we encourage citizens to join with their communities in recognizing Building Safety Month.
Thank you, Councillor McCurry. Madam Clerk, would you now please take the vote on approval of all the proclamations?
All proclamations have carried on a recorded vote of 10-0. Those voting in favor, Councillors Vanderstel, Utley, Sless, McCurry, Martin, Carpenter, and Toski, Van Tilburg, Mayor Davis.
Thank you. So we'll now move on to presentations, delegations, and we have 2 registered delegations this evening. Prior to hearing the delegations, I'd like to remind those in the meeting that we have the following rules of decorum as set forth in the city procedural bylaw. No person shall display any sign, banner, or placard in the meeting room other than materials that, in the opinion of the chair, are legitimate audiovisual aids necessary in connection with your presentation. All persons present shall use polite and respectful language and shall refrain from the use of any language or the making of any gesture that is disrespectful or offensive. All persons addressing council shall speak only in the subject in debate and shall not speak in any other subject. No person shall applaud participants in debate or engage in conversation or behavior that may disrupt the proceedings of the meeting. So with that, we'll move into the 2 delegations. And I believe we have John and Ross who'd like to come forward in regards to the Erie Avenue roadway improvements in item 12.2.5. So step right up and so what I'm going to ask you to do is if you would please state both your full name and your address for the record. And then you can proceed by pushing the button on the microphones. And you have 10 minutes for your entire presentation, including any questions council members may have for you.
Ross Bennett, 12 Parsons Ave.
Good evening, Mayor and councillors. We are here tonight to support Councillor Wall's motion concerning safety issues on Erie Ave. There's been a drastic increase in traffic on Erie Ave over the years that has created 3 safety issues. Safety issue number 1, pedestrian crossing. I live at the corner of Erie and Parsons Street, and Parsons Street is the dead end street that goes down to Parsons Park. And I see, especially now that the weather's changing, I see on a daily basis, parents with kids in tow, possibly with a wagon or some bicycles, struggling to cross the street safely. I see kids at Tulip Park having the same difficulty crossing on their way to and from the park. I went by and had a chat with the crossing guard at Erie Ave and Dorothy by Bellevue School today. I thought she had a pretty good perspective on this, as she's out there 3 times a day during the week. And she says everyone speeds, especially the transport trucks. And she says, actually, when traffic is busy, she actually has to target a car with her stop sign, hoping they'll stop. Might take 2 or 3 times. She gets that lane stopped, goes over to the other lane, and does the same thing. So even with a crossing guard present, it's very difficult to cross this street when the traffic is at its peak. Safety issue number 2, vehicles accessing Erie Ave from driveways on Erie Ave or from side streets coming into Erie Ave. The complaint from both residents on the street and those coming into it is the time it takes to access the street safely. And safety issue number 3, speed. We read the article in the Expositor last Friday that speeding in Brantford is a big problem. So it will come as no surprise to you when I tell you that Erie Ave is a speedway. It's stated in the traffic study that there is a general increase in speed as traffic flows south towards the Cockship Bridge. And at this point, they're passing crossing areas for 2 schools. We took our concerns to Councillor Wall last August. He arranged a few meetings for us with the traffic department. Our suggestion was to install 2 all-way stops between the lights at Erie and Cayuga and Burkett Lane to control speed, excuse me, and provide some breaks in traffic. These lights are the last break in traffic before you hit the Cockship Bridge. The distance between the lights at Erie and Cayuga and the city limit is 2.67 kilometers. Erie Ave is a minor arterial artery. We traveled many other minor arterial roads in the city that pass residential areas to see how many traffic breaks there were in this same distance. When compared to other similar roadways in the city, there's none we know of with no traffic barriers in 2.67 kilometers. And there was at least 1 to several on many streets. And we, in that same distance, have none. Traffic studies, or the traffic study they did, tells us that all-way stops for some reason would make this situation worse, not better. This motion has significant neighborhood support. We are a committee of the Eagle Place Community Association, and we have a petition with 241 signatures on it supporting what we're doing here. So finally, despite the fact that traffic on Erie Ave has increased dramatically over the years, safety measures on Erie Ave haven't changed in decades. Erie Ave is in a dire need of a safety upgrade, so tonight we ask you to support Councillor Wall's motion. I'll take questions if you have any.
Any questions for the delegation? Councillor Wall. You didn't leave your hand up. Councillor Van Schilberg.
Thank you for that, Councillor Wall. How do you feel right now about what has been presented? Yeah, you saw a presentation a few weeks back. I know you went over things. Could you just tell the public on what your feelings are about it? And if you still think there needs to be some tinkering done with what's been presented?
What is currently proposed or was in that part does make a change. Does it totally address the situation right now? I say no. In fact, further to what John said, after we studied the minor arterial road and the 2.67 kilometers stretch, in fact, the only change you see is after you cross the Cockship Bridge, it's now legal to do 70 kilometers an hour. Most people already are, but the sign says you can legally do it. I, in my travels since then, have checked it out, and I don't believe there's another city road Expressway Avenue in the city of Brantford with a 2.67 kilometer distance between some type of traffic barrier? If there is, please tell me. But in all residential areas, there's no one being ignored as much as we have in the area of Erie Ave.
As a follow-up to that, the question I have about the report is that I think a lot of it is based on what's going to be the development, Burkett's Lane, Fifth Ave in that area. And what we've been told that they're going to do is they're going to suggest stops at 9th, start at Burkett's Lane, 9th, and Baldwin. And the question I have is, okay, they're telling us that one stop, even one stop now, say at 9th Ave, would make it worse, if not better. So I'm not seeing how putting more stops in is really going to make a difference. And the concern I have is at this time last year, there was a meeting from the with the developer's spokesman who described the timelines for the development in that area. And he said that could take up anywhere up to 9 years. And also now I believe Six Nations want to dig, which could further put that project back a few years, maybe, I don't know. But my point, I guess my point is why can we not have one four-way stop at 9th Ave, which would slow the traffic down, provide a break? Now in their recommendations, there is a pedestrian crosswalk at pedestrian activated crosswalk at Salisbury and Erie that they're going to make into a full signal, which is a great idea. It's another break. So that's my concerns about that anyway.
Councillor Wall.
Thanks for being here, guys. So this is contentious. I don't think really so much here, but online, and you guys went out door knocking. The Expositor put out a big article about this, and there were just hundreds of comments on there. So can you talk a little bit about your experience when you were doing the door knocking and going out and talking to people about this? You said that the community's on side, and I agree. But there's also a lot of people who don't want to see us do anything to Erie Ave. They want us to take out all the stop signs, take out all the lights, make it a raceway. Can you just talk about that?
When I did the petition walk, I heard some horror stories from a lot of people. I would say out of all the houses that I went to, I only had maybe 3 or 4 that were negative. In fact, to the point one individual says they should have no speed limits in this city. So that's the type of reaction I was getting. The people on Passmore Court, if you went in and talked to them, they can tell you horror stories. The reduced speed for those children attending, I believe it's Madonna School now in Bellevue, the reduced speed is on Dorothy Street. That section of Erie Ave is still a full-blown 50 kilometers an hour with no change at all for that poor crossing guard. And those people on Passmore Court, it was nothing but horror stories. I've heard some comments since then, after it's finally became more prevalent, the discussion on it, and there's more and more people speaking up all the time. We have, and I'll be honest, we've been ignored in the past. We went to ward meetings. We didn't even get the time of day out of our satisfaction. Bike lanes, they put bike lanes in there. And I wouldn't let my grandchildren ride that bike lane down there. It's taking your life into your own hands. In fact, I believe something about arterial roads, there's not supposed to be bike lanes. Like, where is the concern? I raised the issue years ago about other streets in the city that things took place, and it was just like, you don't exist. We have been ignored. Back in, I'm going to say between 1967 and 1972, Winston Court was a senior citizens building. 2 senior ladies were hit on Erie Ave, approximately burnt all cleaners, and were deceased as a result of that. They put a sign up warning seniors crossing. That's what they did for us. That crossing sign isn't there anymore. The only change that's taken place on Erie Ave is at the expressway, another set of lights was put in. And when was the expressway built? So you talk about being ignored, that's a long time. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bennett.
Can I follow up?
Lucia? No, we've hit the 10 minutes.
thank
All
you.
right.
Thanks, guys.
And I want to thank you very much for coming out tonight. And we're listening. We'll see what we do tonight. Okay. Thank you. So we'll move on to the second delegate. I believe this is coming in virtually, Mr. Nick Wood, regarding the 248 to 260 Grand River Ave.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor.
So, Mr. Wood, I know we saw you a couple weeks back. Could you just please introduce yourself again, please? And tonight, unlike the other night, there's a total of 10 minutes for your presentation.
I'll do better. I'll keep it really short. Good evening, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, members of council. My name is Nick Wood. I'm with Corporate Land Strategies. We're the planning consultants on the zoning bylaw amendment for 248 to 260 Grand River Avenue. We've requested to delegate more as just to come monitor the situation. I would like to actually reserve my delegation, I guess, to the bylaw discussion if needed. I don't want to prolong this issue. It was a lengthy meeting, so I don't know if that would be possible.
That's not possible. So, Mr. Wood, this is the time tonight that you have the opportunity to present to us, and so now would be the time to take advantage of the opportunity.
Sure. And I understand that staff is there's been some discussions on the motion attached to the approval of the Grand River Avenue decision. We're on behalf of the client, we just want to reiterate our support for ensuring the reduction of the impacts on the on-street parking as a result of this particular file. So if there are questions on how we can assist with that, we are open to working with council on that matter. There's at least one member of council has a question for you, Councillor Sless.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Wood, are you indicating that your client supports not charging for parking on his property to his tenants?
Yes. Yeah.
You're in full,
we
in
are,
full support of that.
We're in support insofar as ensuring that the future buildings have that established. The complication that arrives for a client is the existing agreements that are in place with the existing tenants. They would also be willing to support that at the term of the agreement, if necessary, to be implemented. But the client is in support of it. It just the existing agreement complicates things.
Okay, I think I get that. I think what you're saying is the existing building would be grandfathered in to the point when the agreements start expiring, they would not be renewed, and it would be free parking in all three buildings. Is that correct?
Exactly. That's correct.
Thank you.
Councillor Martin.
Thank you. Are you suggesting that the tenants wouldn't appreciate getting their parking free now?
No, I'm definitely not suggesting that. I'm just suggesting that the existing agreement between the Maltanis, the Lanewood Development Corporation, and the city's housing agreement complicates things a little bit in terms of the money they receive to subsidize some of the tenants, how that factors into the parking that's allocated.
Okay, so
it's a lot more complicated than I think we all anticipated.
okay, thank you.
So, Mr. Wood, I'm not seeing any other questions. Thank you very much for coming out tonight and presenting as a delegate. And we will be dealing with this fairly early on in the meeting.
Excellent. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thanks, everyone from council.
All right, so we'll now move into item 10, the clerk's reporting communications. Councillor Vanderstel, I think you have the motion to receive the report and communications.
I believe I do. Thanks. Thanks, Tanya. The clerk's report on communications for April 2022 be received. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Was moved by yourself, seconded by Councillor Martin.
Yes, please.
All right. Any discussion? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, would you please take the vote?
Yes.
The clerk's report on communication is carried on a recorded vote of 10-0. Those voting in favor, Councilors Vanderstel, Utley, Sless, McCurry, Martin, Carpenter, and Toski, Van Tilburg, Wall. Mayor Davis.
All right, we'll now move into the minutes. Councillor Antonsky, you have that motion. Would you please read it and state your seconder?
Thank you, Mayor. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Carpenter, that the following minutes be adopted. City Council, March 22nd, 2022, Special City Council, April 12th, 2022, and Special City Council, Private and Confidential, April 12th, 2022.
Any errors, omissions on the regular special council minutes? Seeing no raised hands, Madam Clerk, would you please take the vote?
All minutes have carried on a recorded vote of 10-0. Those voting in favor, Councilors Vanderstel, Utley, Sless, McCurry, Martin, Carpenter, and Toski, Van Tilburg, Wall. Mayor Davis.
Thank you very much. So we'll now move on to the items that have been separated. And following our normal practice, we would deal with those items where we've had a delegation tonight. I'm going to suggest one slight wrinkle to that. And that is, you recall our last meeting, we had a resolution regarding the late Mr. Kevin Finney, and his family waited 4 hours through the planning hearings we had that night, and they are online again tonight. So I'm hoping no one would object if we deal with that first. Not seeing anyone object. So, Councillor, you have two motions, one a motion to waive and the actual resolution itself. Floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Moved by myself and seconded by my ward mate, Councillor John Sless, that section 1511.5 of chapter 15 of the City of Brantford Municipal Code be waived in order to introduce the following resolution without prior notice of motion. Whereas the city maintains policy corporate 48 municipal street naming policy, which allows for individuals who have been of public service to the city to be recognized and honored by having a street named after them. Whereas the use of street naming to honor individuals should be posthumous honor. And whereas Kevin Finney, the City of Brantford's Director of Economic Development and Tourism, passed suddenly and unexpectedly on March 20, 2022. And whereas the corporation of the City of Brantford lost a great friend, colleague, and outstanding leader who worked tirelessly to promote the city both locally and internationally. And whereas Kevin Finney played a key role in the success of the mayor's Economic Recovery Task Force in developing and delivering a community-wide action plan to mitigate the impacts of the COVID-19 pandemic on the local economy in June of 2020. And whereas Kevin Finney was a highly regarded and respected member of the City of Brantford Economic Development and Tourism Department for almost 20 years, where he was instrumental in and oversaw the completion of many successful projects to improve the economy of Brantford by drawing businesses and visitors to the city, including Mitsui High-Tech Canada Inc., Hershey Canada Inc., Upfield Canada Inc., the 2017 Parasport Games, and the 2022 55+ Summer Games. Now, therefore, be it resolved, A, that staff be directed to consult with Brantford Fire Services and the County of Brant to ensure that there are no conflicts or concerns with including the name Finney on the list of approved street names list for the city of Brantford. And B, that subject to recommendations, A, the name of Finney be added to the approved street name list, and C, that subject to recommendations B, the name Finney be prioritized for use in an industrial subdivision in Brantford, and D, that the necessary bylaw to amend policy corporate 048 municipal street naming policy to implement recommendation C to be presented to council for adoption.
Right, any discussion on just the motion to waive? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, would you please take the vote on that?
The motion to waive the rules is carried on a recorded vote of 10-0. Those voting in favor, Councilors Vandershaw, Utley, Sluss, McCurry, Martin, Carpenter, Antosky, Van Tilburg, Wall, Mayor Davis.
Thank you. So Councilor Riley, would you please put your resolution on the floor? You don't need to read it in its entirety this time.
Without reading it, so
Read the title in your second.
okay, thank you very much. 12.3.10, honoring Kevin Finney and his wife and family, Kelly, Bella, and Emma.
So be seconded by Councilor Sluss again?
Councillor Sluss.
Yeah, all right. All right, so floor is open for discussion.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Oh, was somebody else wants to go first, that's fine.
Councilor Antosky.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to thank Councillor Utley and Councillor Sluss for this. I guess Kevin was one of the best and did really good work for the corporation. And I just want to thank you for finding a way to honor him and in a way that I think would have been important to him and to his family. So thank you.
Councilor Van Tilburg.
I really didn't know Kevin very well. I knew him, but I didn't know him well. But it's I find it very fitting when I see the list here of potential things that he worked on in the industrial sections, and that his name would go on a sign in the industrial section. And those were all projects that I actually am very familiar with. And so sometimes you don't always know who's behind everything. And it's good to know.
Councilor Wall.
Long before I worked with Kevin here, I worked with Kevin on the outside, and he still worked for the city. I didn't. And I wanted to do what he did. Like, he was larger than life. Like, he was the first person, if you were a bigwig coming to this community, a CEO or an executive or somebody in the, somebody, you know, you weren't looking to talk to Mayor Davis or, you know, Chris Friel. You were looking to talk to Kevin Finney because he was the guy you had to talk to get stuff done here in this community. And if you were out and about walking around and you saw Kevin out in the community, almost a guarantee he was sitting at a table with a group of movers and shakers, people who were coming to this community, and nobody you ever met loved this community more than him. And I think it is so fitting that we're going to make sure that his name is synonymous with this community and that we will remember him forever, because anybody who ever met him would remember him forever. He was a great man. He did great things for this community, and he's going to be greatly missed.
Councilor. Sorry, we'll go to Councilor Carpenter and Councilor Sluss on virtual.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you to Councilor Utley and Councilor Celeste for bringing this forward. Kevin was one of those individuals who certainly was a team player with all the staff and was involved in a lot of community activity with the staff at City Hall. But he wasn't one of those people that pounded his chest about what he did. You didn't really talk about his accomplishments. He just quietly went about doing them and representing the city in a very professional way. So it's not surprising that some people may not be aware of all his accomplishments, because that wasn't his style. He was quiet, straightforward, and he got the job done. And he was very proud of this community, and he went out and did the job of representing this community, whether it was in Japan or wherever it might be. He represented us well, and there are a lot of successes, in the industrial awards, and those filling up of those vacant spaces can be attributed right back to Mr. Finney and his work. So, and his staff. He had a great team around him and the staff. So thank you for the resolution, and he certainly is missed and has done a great job for the city.
Councilor Carpenter, Councilor Sless.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, I'm pleased to support this, and I think it's most fitting. To me, Kevin was the consummate professional. He was. I always looked at him and wondered how a gentleman that looked so young could be so accomplished in such a short period of time, but he somehow managed to do that. He left us way too early, but he left a lot behind that he had achieved, and I think that that speaks volumes. I don't think people actually seen Kevin that often. They would see what he accomplished. He wasn't out there, as somebody ahead of me speaking said. He didn't pound his chest. He just went and did his job, and he did it extremely well. And it's even though it's allowed, it's not that often that we do this. And I think there's significance to it because of the significant contribution he made to the well-being of this community. And in years to come, his children can look at that street and say, that was my dad. And I think that's important. Thanks, Mr. Mayor.
Councilor McCurry.
Mayor, thanks. Yeah, thanks to the two Johns for bringing this forward tonight. And I agree that the street naming in one of the subdivisions that he's populated with successful businesses is a most fitting tribute. When I look around at the corporation, the city of Brantford, we've got a roster of some pretty talented people. Kevin Finney certainly was on the all-star team as far as I was concerned. You look at the accomplishments that the man made, and it's been said that he did it very quietly, very unassumingly. He accomplished a lot, and there's a lot that people in this community look at, and they'll not see his name on it, but they will see his name on that street. And again, I think that's a very fitting tribute. And I hope his family, as was said, can take some pride in that as years go on, and be able to look at Kevin's accomplishments and feel proud.
Thank you, Councilor McCurry. Councilor Vanderstoep.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Working with Kevin in a professional capacity was just always a marvel to watch. As a neighbor, lived down the street from me, an amazing father to watch. As a friend, he made a big difference in my life as well. One of the things that rings true in everything he did, and I think why he was so successful, because he was humble and he was kind. And when you work with people who treat you with respect, you can get a lot further. I thank him for that.
Well, before I go to you, Councilor Utley, shortly following Kevin's passing, I made a statement on behalf of the city. And I want to say something personal to his family. And having reached the middle of my 6th decade in life, I've dealt with this situation a lot where you lose somebody that's extremely close to you. It could be a very close friend or a family member. And I've learned that the way to deal with the grief and that pain that you get daily, many times a day, is over the course of time, you try and replace the pain, that gnawing feeling in your soul, with a really nice memory of the person. And I know that when we did the celebration of life, and I attended, I was hearing lots of really amusing stories. I know it's those stories that often sustain a family. And I just say to the family, there's one, Kevin Finney he reported to the CAO, which meant that pretty close relationship with me as well. And he actually his office was just down the hall from mine. And we had a lot to do with one another. And I'm a notorious practical joker, but generally only with people that I really feel comfortable with. And Kevin Finney and I would kind of go back and forth. And my last memory of Kevin was I was doing a video on the top of City Hall with a megaphone, and I came down the third floor, and it was a bit of a practical joke with Kevin. I stood in the hallway, and using the megaphone, I said, Kevin Finney, report immediately to the mayor's office. Little did I know he was actually in the middle of doing a virtual seminar for about 50 new employees of the city. But he kept his cool. He had a great sense of humor, and he said to the new employees, well, the mayor's got it. Someone gave the mayor a new toy. And that's the kind of relationship I had with him. That's the kind of person he was. And yes, there was the professional side of Kevin Finney that I've talked about before, which he was a leader, and he was a leader coming into his stride with the city. And there was much more in front of him. And it's truly a tragedy for the city to have lost Kevin at such an early age, not to mention to his family, but to the family. I hope you might include this as one of the stories that you can use when remembering Kevin. So with that, go to Councillor Utley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, council and staff, although mine and Councillor Sless's names are on the resolution, this resolution belongs to all of us, particularly Nicole Wilmot and the great staff in economic development and tourism who worked together to draft up the wording. Clearly, you all loved and respected your leader and colleague, Kevin. So as I read this resolution, I read it on behalf of economic development, tourism, all our employees, our senior leadership team, and my friends on council. I do so for Kevin and his family, this young, talented man who everyone loved and respected for his easygoing nature, his wonderful smile, and get the job done professionalism. I recall a little time when we visited Japan, when I always seem to get stuck in the middle of two tall guys. I feel like these two bookends either side of me. Yeah, you can laugh. I think they do it on purpose, you know. And I need to talk to Doug Hunt about getting some 1 foot stilts to see if they'll help. But Kevin and I had the honor of representing Brantford on a visit to Mitsui High-Tech in Japan in 2018. Towards the end of our visit, Kevin went gift buying for Kelly and the girls. He was very specific in what he wanted for them. And of course, he didn't give up going store to store until he was satisfied with something that he knew that they would like or had told him to buy, especially the girls, Bella and Emma. Such a patient husband and father. The naming of a road in Kevin's honor will perpetuate his reputation, his dedication and commitment, and honor his family. Mr. Mayor, council and staff, we thank you for your support. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillors Utley and Councillor Sless. And Madam Clerk, please now take the vote.
Item 12.3.10, honoring Kevin Finney, the late Director of Economic Development and Tourism, by adding Finney to the approved straight naming list, was carried on a recorded vote of 10-0. Those voting in favor, Councillors Vanderstel, Utley, Sless, McCurry, Martin, Carpenter, and Tuskey, Vento, Borkwall. Mayor Davis.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. So we'll now move on to the item in respect to our first delegation. We don't like to keep you waiting. And so we'll move to 12.2.5, which is the Vision Zero Road Safety Committee report. And excuse me, that report contains several sections, one of which I declare conflict on. This is item 1, the Erie Avenue roadway improvements. Get a mover and seconder. Moved by Councillor Wall, seconded by Councillor Van Tilburg. So, floor is open for discussion. Councillor Wall.
Thank you, Mayor Davis. So first and foremost, thank you to the delegation for coming out. And honestly, thank you so much for your boots on the ground efforts to going out, rallying the community. You guys put just so much work into this. And I know it just wasn't you two. You guys had a team, you had other people out there, and you worked so diligently and so dedicatedly with the neighborhood association, which is exactly what I asked you guys to do. And you guys were already doing anyway, because if we're going to do something like this, we got to get all hands on deck. So thank you very much. Next, staff, if anybody can answer this question. I like to think this is an ongoing process and that this isn't the final report. This is kind of like just a work in progress. Could you talk a little bit about how you guys are going to work with these guys and the neighborhood association to ensure that the changes the neighborhood wants to see happen inevitably or eventually? Mr. Ferguson, couldn't count on anybody else. Perfect.
Good evening, David Ferguson, Manager of Traffic Services, through the chair. So this report is a recommendation report. It is recommending changes and implementation. It is laid out sort of a plan to put in place. So we would be moving forward with the recommended changes as outlined in the report. There wouldn't be any further consultation on that. We will continue, obviously, to monitor conditions on the roadway as part of our road safety platform and program, as well as we are also doing a review of the neighborhood itself as a whole outside of Erie Avenue as previous discussions with the neighborhood association.
Awesome. And David, not to put you on the spot, but to put you on the spot, these guys have been working on this since August of last year. And I mean, that's a long process. If anybody out there is watching and they want to see the kind of changes that these gentlemen want to see in their neighborhood, what is the best way for them to see those changes?
Through the chair, I believe you're asking if for other neighborhoods.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the best way is to engage with either the counselor's office, their local counselor, or ourselves directly. They can contact us and we can arrange for these neighborhood reviews to be completed. And that's the best way to approach these types of situations.
Awesome. Thank you for your hard work on this. I know that you put a tremendous amount of effort into this as well, David, so thank you. That's everything. Thanks.
Councillor Van Tilburg.
Yeah, this is the good work of a subcommittee of the Eagle Place Neighborhood Association. And a lot of times we see changes happen to roads and they may appear quick, but I think when I think they've gone through this process to see how complex Erie Ave is in comparison to some of the other roads. And I also think that our staff have very much taken it upon themselves to see the issues that the neighborhood, the residents on the streets that have all signed those petitions, what they've been facing for quite a significant period of time. So my question to staff is, and I know we breached on it before, but I like to hear it again. What is the quickest gains and the easiest things that can come forward on Erie Ave, and approximately what timeline?
Through the chair, if you give me 2 seconds, I do have it listed here. Here we go. So as outlined in the report, in 2022, we would be proposing a reduction of speed limits within the neighborhood. A PXO type D on River Road. We'll be implementing a school zone and speed limit reduction on Erie Ave, as well as adding some additional speed limit signs and a slow down display sign as you approach the residential neighborhood coming northbound on Erie Ave.
And for traffic control, what's the timeline on the first item that's going to not just slow us down, but make some kind of breaks in the traffic flow?
So that would be in 2023, we would be looking at implementing some of these changes. It would be an additional PXO on Erie Ave at the trail crossing. We'd be looking at pavement marking changes, implementing the center dual left turn lane. We'll be looking at converting the the existing intersection pedestrian signal at Salisbury to a full signal. And then we also have 2 additional signals identified as 9th Avenue and Baldwin Avenue.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. And so now the public has heard exactly what is coming towards Erie Ave in the near future. And I want to take this time to thank the residents as a whole for their input and their understanding now of seeing how this process worked on this road, which I think is going to have we'll probably be looking at another major change in the future when some of that development happens in the south side of the city. So, but this is a great start, and I'm looking forward to those changes. I'm sure the community will be, that they can't happen soon enough.
Councillor Sless, you're next.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I stand corrected, but I thought the presenters this evening indicated that they would like to see a break in the traffic made in that, I believe they referred to it a 2.6 kilometer stretch that if I understood correctly in the presentation, that at some point in the future when development took place, that the city would contemplate putting something in. And I think the request that I thought I heard this evening was that they would like that done now, as opposed to waiting for, I believe he said 9 years is the timeline on the development that would trigger this to happen. And I guess I certainly don't want to step in at somebody else's ward, but if they were so inclined to make an amendment to have that happen, I would be certainly pleased to support it. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Carpenter, you're next.
Yes, I was going to raise a similar point, thinking that maybe amendment might be that at least, at the very least, that a review happen within 12 months of the improvements for a report back for further improvements. But I'll leave it up to the ward councilors how they want to amend it. I'll be supporting them in any way they want.
Councillor Wall, there's only one speaking opportunity unless you're putting forward an amendment. All right. Yeah. All right. What's your amendment?
I propose what Councillor Carpenter said. No, I propose that review 12 months after the report comes in is presented. I believe that is seconded by my ward mate, Councillor Brian Van Tilburg.
Great. And I assume that's like a friendly amendment since the two of you moved and seconded it.
No, yes, it's friendly.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So just to clarify for the delegation that there has been an amendment, which is will be a review at 12 months to see how things have worked and what more can be done or should be done. And so I wanted to thank the ward councillors. This is a work in process. And in particular, I want to thank Councillors Carpenter and Councillor Antosky. This format was similar to what the two of you were using in Echo Place. And I think that was an excellent format the two of you came up with. And this followed a similar format in terms of a virtual meeting, having some great staff there to provide a very focused presentation, getting input from the residents. And it seemed to me to work very well. And I'm sure it's something we'll use again many times in the future. So with that, don't see any further discussion. Madam Clerk, please take the vote. Just take my vote.
Item 12.2.5 Vision Road Safety Committee Report, Item 1, including the friendly amendment, has carried on a vote of 10-0. Mayor Davis did vote in the affirmative. It's noting his conflict for this item, but that would be related to item number 3. So those voting in favor, Councilors Vanderstel, Utley, Sless, McCurry, Martin, Carpenter, and Toski, Van Tilburg, Wall, and Mayor Davis.
All right, and following the usual procedure, we'll now consider, there is an accessory bylaw attached to this, 60-2022. And if I can get a mover and a seconder for the first and second reading of that bylaw. Councillor Utley, you're moving that, and Councillor Vanderstel is seconding it. And so that is leave be given the mover and second to introduce the following bylaw for first and second reading. It's a bylaw to amend bylaw 3783, being a bylaw to regulate traffic in the city of Brantford, Erie Avenue roadway improvements. In fact, just implementing what we just discussed. So any discussion? Seeing none. Madam Clerk, please take the vote on first and second reading. Okay. Good.
My apologies. The way that our conflicts have gone into our electronic system this morning are creating a little bit of havoc. So Councillor Vanderstel and McCreary, your conflicts are coming through on this as if it was the other bylaw. So we're going to try to adjust that. But in the meantime, I'm filling the airways while Lisa works behind me.
How about? Yeah. Why don't you just take a manual vote then?
First and second reading of bylaw 60 has carried on a recorded vote of 8-0. Those voting in favor, Councillors Vanderstel, Utley, Sless, McCurry, Martin, Carpenter, and Toski. Mayor Davis, noting Councillor Van Tilburg and Wall were not present at the time of the vote.
All right, Councillor Utley and Councillor Vanderstel, do you want to move the second, third reading of that bylaw?
I'm sorry, could you repeat that?
Are you prepared to move third reading of the same bylaw? Okay, second by Councillor Vanderstel. Any discussion? Seeing none. Madam Clerk, please take the vote. Okay.
The third and final reading of bylaw 60-2022 is carried on a recorded vote of 8-0. Those voting in favor, Councillors Vanderstel, Utley, Sless, McCurry, Martin, Carpenter, and Toski. Mayor Davis, noting Councillor Van Tilburg and Councillor Wall not present at the time of the vote.
All right, we'll move on to the item relating to the second delegation, and that is item 12.3.2, the zoning bylaw amendment PZ 1021, 248 to 260 Grand River Ave. Also, we're dealing with this separately because of the conflict declared by Councillors Vanderstel and McCreary. If I can have a mover and seconder to place the item on the floor. Moved by Councillor Utley. So seconder is Councillor Martin. Floor is open for discussion. Seeing none. Councillor Sless. Yeah, none in the council chamber, but virtually Councillor Sless.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well, it was nice to hear that the two proposed buildings would have free parking. The problem is that there's already a problem down there with parking from the first building. And we're hearing this evening that they don't feel they're in a position to correct that or legally, I guess, bound to things that permit them or don't permit them to do that. But my understanding is that the neighborhood is already taking up a petition to get permit parking on that section of Grand River Ave so that they can at least park at their own house as opposed to having to fight with one of the folks residing in the apartment building that's not using the space supplied that they have to pay for. So I guess it solves a potential future problem, but it doesn't solve the existing problem. And like I said, the last time we dealt with this project, I can't support it. I won't support it. I don't feel it's good for the neighborhood. And this is just one more thing that is happening down there. And we seem to be turning a blind eye to it, developing the river's edge anyway. And the neighborhood is not happy, and I don't blame them. We do have a waterfront master plan, and it would be nice if we stuck to it. But it doesn't appear that there's a will on this council to do that. So unfortunately, we're going to get the hand that we've asked to be dealt. But I won't be part of that hand. So thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Next, Councillor Martin.
Thank you. When this came to us at Committee of the Whole, I specifically asked the presenter if they would be willing to remove parking from this, the parking charge from this site, and they had no problem with that. Now tonight we hear there is a problem. So I think that because they're not happy with removing the payment for parking, I won't be supporting this issue either, because I think we need to have this move forward. It's been indicated that there's an agreement that stops them from removing the charge for parking. Agreements can be negotiated. If both sides agree, they can make the change needed to remove the charge for parking on this site. So the fact that they don't want to make those negotiations or make that change to the agreement indicates they're not as willing as what they said here in these chambers 2 weeks ago. So for that reason, I'll be voting against this as well.
Sorry, just taking a minute. Okay. All right, not seeing any other hands raised. Madam Clerk, please take a vote.
Item 12.3.2 zoning bylaw amendment PZ-10-21, 248 to 260 Grand River Avenue has failed on a tie vote. Those voting in favor, Councilors Utley, Van Tilburg, Wall, Mayor Davis. Those opposed, Councilors Sless, Martin, Carpenter, and Toskey.
So I think do we need to have the grounds for refusal?
Yes, you would.
Yeah. Okay, so what we have to do now, because this has now failed, we're required by the way the planning process works, we have to set out the reasons for the referral in case the matter is appealed to the Ontario Land Tribunal. So looking for members of the committee. And perhaps Madam Clerk, if you could please tell us what the typical grounds are. And I'll get a motion to have that added in.
And just bear with me, we're just pulling it up.
Chuck Jabber.
Yep.
Mr. Mayor, while we're waiting for staff to look up that, I would suggest that this is being refused because of their request to reduce the amount of parking required below what is stipulated by the municipality, and we cannot accept that for this site.
All right, we'll leave it as it is. I mean, the reason why you normally do that is because if it goes to the Ontario Land Tribunal, you would have a reason for the refusal for the tribunal to consider. And so it's going to go forward to them with really no reason other than that indicated verbally at this meeting. But it is what it is. So we'll now move on to the next item. So let's move on to item in terms of separated matters is dealing with, let me see. It's item 12.2.5. This is the Vision Zero Road Safety Committee report. And actually, Councillor Ellie, you have to take this over for me. This is in reference to the Echo Place neighborhood review. And there's a conflict in that I've declared.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just bear with me for a second here. Okay. Thank you. So can I get a, would you like me to read this out as well, or?
You just need someone to move it.
Just need to move in a second. So any discussion? Okay. Is there any discussion on this item? I don't see, excuse me. So can I get a mover? Well, so thank you very much, Councilor Mento, seconded by Councilor McCurry. Any discussion? I see no hands raised. Thank you very much. Madam Clerk, would you please take the vote?
I just wanted to clarify. So the omnibus motion moved and moved by Councillor Van Tilburg and Councillor McCurry has now placed all separated items for discussions on the floor. Then we were on item 12.2.5. Item 3 of that is what you're voting on now. Just wanted to clarify. Item 12.2.5, item 3, Vision Zero Road Safety Committee report has carried on a recorded vote of 8-0. Those voting in favor, Councillors Utley, Sless, McCurry, Martin, Carpenter, and Toski, Van Tilburg, Wall, noting Mayor Davis conflict.
Thanks, Councillor Utley. We'll now move into the next item that's been separated. That's 12.2.6. And so we already have this on the floor through the. All right, 12.2.7. That's already on the floor, correct? All right, so Councillor Martin, you asked for this to be separated because of a possible amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move, seconded by Councilor McCurry, that item 12.2.7 be amended by adding the following within the recitals. Whereas the residents of Greenbrier requested adult school crossing guards for the intersection of Francis Street and Variety Ave and the intersection of Francis, Briar Crescent, and White Oaks Drive. B, that the addition of the following clause, that adult school crossing guards be approved at the intersection of Variety and Francis, and also at the intersection of Francis, Briar Crescent, and White Oaks Drive, to address the concern raised by area residents, parents, and school representatives to provide safe and controlled crossing for students. And speaking to this is something that was requested by parents and the school board in this area I believe, a year or two ago, and it was not approved. There was no crossing guards added to this location. As the school in Ward 5, this is a school that doesn't have any adult school crossing guards. It also has a Y-shaped intersection that is unusual, and three streets come together from different directions. It's not a T, it's actually a Y. And the one street has a grade to it, which makes sight lines difficult in this area. So for that reason, I think it's important that we provide adult crossing guards to these locations. Variety is a fairly busy street as well as Francis. So this, I believe the traffic on that intersection would be greater than the one in the original resolution. So I would ask council to support this change and allow additional crossing guards to be placed where they're desperately needed. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Any additional discussion on the amendment? Seeing none. Madam Clerk, on the amendment.
The amendment to item 12.2.7 crossing guard request Princess Elizabeth School has carried on a recorded vote of 9-0. Those voting in favor, councilors. My apologies, Councillor Vanderstel, we have a carryover from your, again, my apologies.
You're really in here.
I know, I'm sorry. There's a lot of moving parts at the moment, so my apologies. Councillor Carper on the amendment, we're just waiting for your response. Thank you. The amendment to item 12.2.7 crossing guard request has carried on a recorded vote of 10-0. Those voting in favor, councilors Vanderstel, Utley, Slash McCreary, Martin, Carpenter, Antosky, Van Tilburg, Mayor Davis.
All right, we'll now move to, please, let's move along, please. So we'll move to item 12. I just point, there's the sound in this council chamber really carries much more than the old council chamber. So anyways, 12.2.8 rent safe Brantford, Councillor Martin.
Mr. Mayor, you might want to take a vote on the motion as amended.
Sorry, right you are. So the resolution 12.2.6 has been amended. And is there any discussion on the resolution as amended? Yes, Councillor Wall.
So I was really incredibly excited to see all the hard work that went into this originally coming to committee, and the parents of the community working together with the school board trustees, working with the school board, working with the province, working with the police, working with council. And we were applauded for Councillor Van Tilburg and I for our work bringing this motion through. So I just kind of want to pass on those same compliments to Councillor Martin and his ward mate, Councillor Dan McCreary, for working together with their neighborhood to make sure that yet another school in our community could potentially get a crossing guard. This is just great constituent work, because at the end of the day, it is a good idea to make the community a safer place for everybody. And I am thrilled that this is likely to get unanimous support. And that right there is good governance, fellas and ladies. Thank you.
Councillor Van Tilburg.
I think it was mentioned by the mayor the last go around that most schools already had crossing guards, and to look up the process was, you know, that's why so much legwork was put into this. So it's actually good to see. And if any more before we pass this, let's get them in now, because I you know, that's the benefit of this. Now that we know we can get it done. And I'm just happy to see there was another benefit, because boy, if somebody discovered in like 20 years and they'd forgotten how to get a crossing guard passed, it was quite a journey. And now it seems like I look at that and I think that seems so easy now. So it's good to have, good to see.
Councillor Carpenter.
Yes, thank you. Sort of along the lines of my colleague, Councillor Van Tilburg, we've now established kind of a new policy or procedure for getting crossing guards. We just move them. Thank you.
All right, seeing no further discussion, Madam Clerk, please take the vote on this. The amended resolution.
Item 12.2.7 crossing guard request as amended has carried on a recorded vote of 10-0. Those voting in favor, Councilors Vanderstel, Utley, Sless, McCurry, Martin, Carpenter, and Toski, Van Tilburg, Wall, Mayor Davis.
So we'll now move on to 12.2.8 rent safe Brantford. Council Martin.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As I said at the committee of the whole, I believe this is a duplication of services that are already available. And for that reason, I'll be voting against it here as well. Thank you.
Not seeing any further discussion, Madam Clerk, please take the vote on this.
Councilor Wall, depending on your vote. Item 12.2.8 rent safe Brantford has carried on a recorded vote of 8-2. Those voting in favor, Councilors Vanderstel, Sless, McCurry, Carpenter, and Toski, Van Tilburg, Wall, Mayor Davis. Those opposed, Councilors Utley, Councilor Martin.
Move on to the next matter. Councilor Martin, 12.3.8. You asked for this to be separated. Read the Ontario Land Tribunal.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This item is asking us to ask the province to abolish the land tribunal. And the problem I have with this resolution is it doesn't provide an alternative. And I think something is needed for this area. I agree there are some changes needed. Apparently, a developer can introduce new information at an appeal and can bring forward a different proposal than what went to the municipality in presenting their case. So there are some changes needed, but I don't agree with abolishing it until something is designed to take its place. So I'll be voting against this one as well. Thank you.
All right, not seeing any. Councilor Wall.
I just want to echo what Councilor Martin said. If you're going to suggest doing something different, suggest what you're going to do different. Make a recommendation to how it could be better. But just to abolish it, I just don't see the value in that. I'd almost be afraid what we would get might be worse. Is the system perfect? No, but appeals is a big part of our system, whether it's appealing something that we made or a decision that the province made, or I don't know. I'm voting against this because I don't know what the alternative is.
All right, not seeing any further hands raised. Madam Clerk, please take the vote on this one.
Item 12.3.8 dissolve the OLT has failed on a recorded vote of 4-6. Those voting in favor, Councilor Sless, Carpenter, and Toski, Van Tilburg. Those opposed, Councilors Vanderstel, Utley, McCurry, Martin, Wall, Mayor Davis.
Right, we'll move to item 12.3.9, the Police Services Board Public Engagement Priority. And Councilor McCurry, I believe you asked for this to be separate.
Mayor, you are correct. Councilor Martin is the seconder for this resolution before us tonight. Reads as follows: we're under the Police Services Act 1990. Every municipality shall provide adequate and effective police services in accordance with its needs. And whereas adequate and effective police services must, at a minimum, include crime prevention, law enforcement, assistance to victims, public order maintenance, and emergency response. And whereas the Act further stipulates that there shall be a police services board for every municipality that maintains a police force that is responsible for the provision of adequate and effective police services in the municipality, and shall generally determine, after consultation with the chief of police, objectives and priorities with respect to police services in the municipality. And whereas the communities served by providers of police services should be consulted as part of the Police Services Board objectives and priorities setting exercise. And whereas the corporation of the city of Brantford has appointed 3 of the 5 members on the Police Services Board, now therefore be it resolved to help inform Police Services Board objectives and priorities setting The city CAO be directed to leverage the engagement resources and tools of the city to do as follows. A, conduct 2 engagement sessions with city leaders and stakeholder groups. B, conduct 2 public town hall opportunities at Brantford City Hall. C, undertake a Let's Talk Brantford online engagement campaign, including use of the survey forum and ideas engagement tools. D, provide a summary of the above collection of data to the chair of the Brantford Police Services Board. And E, forward a copy of this motion to the chair of the Brantford Police Services Board. And I'll address some remarks to this as well, Mayor. This is an opportunity for the board to inform itself of what the community priorities are with respect to policing. Every one of us in this room hears on a daily basis the desires of our community, both with respect to the positive things that are being done by police, as well as the things that they consider to be deficits with respect to how we police our community, in terms of some things that maybe the community and the police management does not agree are priorities ahead of us. So this is an opportunity for the public to come tell us what they think. This is a Police Services Board initiative, but it's being hosted by the city of Brantford. Firstly, because the board is a pretty skinny chicken when it comes to resources. And the city of Brantford, quite conversely, has the resources to do this properly. We have some excellent staff. I will say also that it's an interesting case study in the intersectionality of Police Service Board and city of Brantford, in as much as there are some cultural differences and there are some oddities in terms of how the two interact. And quite frankly, this is here before us today because municipal staff thought that they should be definitely receiving clear and concise direction from this august group to be able to cross that intersection and to wade into the provision of service to the Police Services Board to allow this community engagement to happen. We're making strides to improve that intersectionality as we go forward, but this is before us today. And I would hope that everybody will be fully supportive of this, not only supportive of the resolution tonight, but supportive of the initiative itself. And each one of us, I would hope, would do our part to make sure that this becomes well known and that we encourage our constituents to come talk to us, to comment online, to email us, and to clearly establish what the policing priorities can and should be for our community. And that will help us. Councillor Martin and I are members of the board. The municipality also appointed Mark Littell, who's currently the chair of the board, and there are 2 provincial reps who sit as well. And that'll provide some clear direction with respect to how the board governs, because after all, the governance is the board's responsibility. The operations lie with the chief of police. Thank you, Mayor.
Madam Clerk, can I see this resolution, please? Yeah. Just share it for us. Yeah, I wanted to say, having previously served in the Brantford Police Services Board, I understand exactly what it is that Councillor McCreary is intending to achieve here, which is the board fully exercising its statutory responsibilities under the Police Services Act in setting policing priorities in consultation with the public. The city here, we've refined the Let's Talk Brantford format, that website, that platform. And certainly, I think it's making good use of the resources we have available to us here at the city to assist the Police Service Board as it goes through a priority setting objective. And I agree with Councillor McCreary. It's an important process. It's mandated by the Act, and it provides an opportunity for the Police Services Board to establish those policing priorities for the benefit of the community. So very happy to support this. Not seeing any further raised hands. Madam Clerk, take the vote on it, please.
Item 12.3.9, Police Services Board Public Engagement Priority Setting has carried on a recorded vote of 9-0. Those voting in favor are Councilors Vanderstel, Utley, Slash, McCurry, Martin, Antosky, Van Tilburg, Wall, Mayor Davis, noting Councilor Carpenter was not present at the time of the vote.
Members of council, I'm going to take 10 minutes. I'm going to declare we're going to take a 10-minute recess. There is a procedural matter in respect to that rezoning application that there is no decision, and there needs to be a decision. So I'm going to be consulting with staff to determine what the procedural niceties are to make sure we follow the correct procedure required by the Plan Act. And we're going to recess for a period of 10 minutes. We'll reconvene at 10:08. Day what we're doing.
12.5, your amendment.
How did you break it down better than do those email to send it? I couldn't forward it.
You have to do it in here. Okay, we're going to reconvene, please. I think we've got a quorum now. We'll reconvene. So we're going to move to item 12.4.5. That is the resolution coming out of the Finance Committee that has to do with hospice operations. Councillor Carpenter declaring a conflict. So we're dealing with this separately for that reason. Yes, Councillor Martin.
Thank you. I'm glad this got separated because of the conflict, because this is one that I meant to separate, and I missed it when I was making my notes for this meeting. The problem I have with this is we've given money to the hospice for their capital needs when they were building. We've also gave money and some operating to the St. Joe's Life Care Center. Healthcare is a provincial responsibility, and when the municipality starts contributing to the operating costs of these facilities, it gets us into a very gray area, and it sets a very bad precedent. And I think what we also have to remember is we're going to be on the hook for doing some fundraising if we want to see the Brantford General Hospital expanded and renovated and made into a first-rate facility that it can be. And because we're going to need to contribute to that, I think contributing to the operating of the hospice operations, although it's an excellent organization and they provide an excellent service, it's not something the city should be funding. So I'm hoping that I can convince enough of you that this is not the right way for us to be going. I believe we need to vote this down. Thank you.
Not seeing any further hands raised, Madam Clerk. Please take the vote on this.
Item 12.4.5, hospital operations, has carried on a recorded vote of 6-2. Those voting in favor of Councillor Utley / McCurry and Toski Van Tilborg, Mayor Davis. Those opposed, Councillor Vanderstel, Councillor Martin, noting Councillor Carpenter's conflict, and Councillor Wall was absent at the time of the vote.
Right, we'll move to the last item prior to urgent reports, which is the Downtown Improvement Task Force Report 12.5. I'd like to put forward amendments. So Councillor Utley, I'm going to ask you to take the chair, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Would you like to move your amendment, please?
I certainly would. So moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Vanderstel, that the Downtown Brantford Improvement Task Force recommendation be amended by changing the numbering of paragraph E to G. So it'll be the last subparagraph, and add a new clause E to read as follows: that staff be directed to provide a comprehensive report prior to the 2023 Estimates Committee, identifying actions and costs to implement and support the priorities outlined in the Downtown Priority Plan, that those staff recommendations be considered within the 2023 budget deliberations, and to provide a report to Committee of the Whole in July 2022 cycle, identifying what preliminary actions and strategies are either in progress or the staff recommends be undertaken in 2022.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Are there any comments or questions? Mr. Mayor.
Thank you for recognizing me. So my comment, I can't talk about the amendment without really talking about the task force itself, to put it in the proper context of amendment. So this was actually formed last summer. It was last June. It was a request of the BIA. And it was because the pandemic had pretty much exposed that there were a number of challenges facing our downtown, from homelessness, drug use, social disorder, and visible property crime, although I'll emphasize the downtown actually, when it comes to serious crime, is not as bad as other areas of the city. And, you know, much had been done in the past. But most of that was physical, like Harmony Square, bringing Laurier in, bringing Conestoga in, the move of City Hall, the graffiti program to eliminate graffiti, the Artworks project. And there hadn't been very many initiatives that dealt with some of the social issues. We did the downtown outreach. Recall, we did that the first term of council. And so we decided we had to strike the task force to look beyond what prior councils had looked at. I mean, there's been a lot done in the past to improve our downtown, led by many excellent past councils. And so we struck the committee, myself, Councillor Wall, Councillor McCreary, Councillor Utley, Councillor Van Tilburg and Vanderstelt, the MP, the MPP, representatives from the Chamber, the Central Neighborhood Association, Laurie, Conestoga, the Brantford Police Service, the Health Unit. And there was a lot of public input. We had various public forums. We broke the committee and the task force into 3 subcommittees, working groups that did a lot of work. One was focusing on safety and security, one focused on providing supports for the vulnerable, and one what we can do to promote the economic and cultural vitality of the downtown. Lots of ideas, lots of discussion occurring at those working group meetings. And then all of that led to a compilation of the summary of some key priorities that we believe, the task force believes, will make Brantford downtown a better place to live, visit, and conduct business. And these priorities, they're going to act as a guide, as a guidance for the collective work so that the downtown will be safer, more inclusive, more prosperous, more resilient, and vital. And how's that going to be done? How will it be done? Well, the priorities focus on expanding cultural education hub, improving cleanliness and appearance of properties, a program to what's called harden and crime-proof properties downtown. Certainly many other programs as well, a better coordination of the social and housing supports. And I'd say this, that some of the issues we're seeing downtown are well, I'll comment on this later, but let's get down to this. So the vision will guide the stakeholders as we move forward. It's not intended to be one and done and we're finished. That's actually far from it. You'll notice in the resolution, as it was originally worded, there's going to be an annual summit where the stakeholders come together and the public to review what has been achieved in a year, what needs to be, what can be achieved further, what additional priorities and focuses there might be. And then the downtown task force's final meeting changed that to include, there's going to be a downtown action committee consisting of the stakeholders. It'll meet quarterly and it'll review what progress have been made in the priorities and what further new ideas have come up and what further action needs to be taken to improve the downtown. And we all agreed, we all committed at the last task force meeting, this is where it gets into the amendment, Chair, is we all agreed that we would take the strategic direction, we come back to our organizations and we look, what can we do now that will move that vision forward? And so the intent of my amendment is to do exactly what we've asked the other stakeholders to do. Bring back the vision, look at what you can do. And this is what this does. It says some of the actions that we will take as a city will be longer term and will require money and thus must go to the 2023 estimates committee process that the next council will look at. But we know there are things that we've already done, frankly, and more we can do in this budget year. And that's why there's a second part, which asks staff to come back in July and tell us what we have actually accomplished so far this year and what more we could accomplish in the remaining part of 2022 to further advance the vision of a better and more prosperous, more vibrant, safer downtown. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councillor Carpenter.
Thank you. I like this amendment, actually, and I'll tell you why. I like it because they're talking about considered within the 2023 budget. And having been a long-term around council, and Councillor Sless will certainly remember this, when we had the debate on the casino, we talked about the casino funding actually being funding policing and security in the downtown, which we're already funding now through taxpayer money. We were going to and we were going to make the downtown a better place, a secure place. It was supposed to be mental health, addiction, and security for downtown. And those are the issues we're actually dealing with now, because we didn't put the money towards that. We started off putting it towards that, and we thought we didn't need it, and we started putting it towards special projects. So in conjunction with the 2023 budget, we can relook at that whole issue again and maybe put the casino money where it belongs, back in this location, and taking care of making sure the downtown is the safest, most secure, and cleanest place in the city. And if we use the casino money for that, we probably wouldn't have this today. And I don't want to leave this without saying that these issues are happening all across the community, by the way, North End, South End, they are everywhere. But we wanted to make your downtown core represents your city. And however that looks, that core looks, that represents the whole community. So it should be the safest, most secure, and cleanest place in the city first, and then outward from there. So I support this amendment because it looks for how we're going to fund this ongoing. And I hope that we would consider the casino money in the 2023 budget. And maybe by then we'll actually have a 4-year budget. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Any other questions? I see none. Madam Clerk, would you please take the vote?
The amendment for item 12.5.1 being the Downtown Brantford Priority Plan has carried on a recorded vote of 10-0. Those voting in favor, Councillors Vanderstel, Utley, Sless, McCurry, Martin, Carpenter, Antosky, Van Tilburg, Wall, Mayor Davis.
Oh, why don't I take it over, because now we've dealt with the amendment. And so we now have thank you very much, Councillor Utley. So we have the resolution as amended out for discussion. Councillor Wall.
Thank you, Mayor Davis. Okay, bear with me, please, for a moment. There was a time long ago when our community's downtown was the envy and the talk, not just of the region, not just of the province, not even our country at the time, but this part of the world. Go downtown for 10 minutes, open your eyes and have a look at the history, the heritage, and think for a minute that this is one of the oldest lived in areas of North America. Long before we came here, people called this community home. There is something special about Brantford. There is something special about the Grand River. There is something special about Brant's Crossing and that specific area of the world. There was a time, and if you talk to people who remember, they talk about Brantford being a place of prosperity, a place of growth, a place of learning, a place of love, a place of commerce, a place of history and heritage, a place of communication, a place of nations working together. That was our downtown. And I would argue that it still is. When I moved to this community as a young boy, our downtown was as bad as it had ever been. Abandoned buildings, crime, vandalism, and all I have ever seen since I was a little boy is our downtown get better. And now, as a grown man and counselor for the downtown in Eagle Place and East Ward and Ward 5, I have been able to work with absolutely incredible human beings to help bring downtown back to what it used to be, those days of yore. We have education, we have love, we have learning, we have heritage, we have culture, we have music, we have business, we have prosperity. Our downtown may never be what it was. I argue that it can be better. And I'll tell you the secret. I'll tell you the thing that maybe no one isn't talking about. It isn't money. It isn't time. It's hard work. This is our downtown. Downtown is the people who live in it, who love in it, who work in it, who learn in it, who use it, who explore it, who take care of it, and who take it back. And if you want your downtown to be something great, make it great. be a part of that change. And that's what this task force represents. When it was brought forth that we were going to do another task force, we were hit every which way. Oh, you guys have done this before. You've done this before. You've done this before. You've done this before, over and over and over and over again. But that's how things work. You try and you try and you try and you fail and you fail and you fail until you finally do it. So is this that? I don't know. But I do know that this is a commitment from the who's who of this community and everywhere that we are going to commit to taking back our downtown and doing everything that we can to make sure that it is a safe place where you can love and you can learn and you can grow and you can do governance and you can invest. I love our downtown. I love every single human being who put their fingerprints onto this report. And I look forward to seeing our downtown be better than it used to be, because I am confident that it can. Thanks.
Not seeing any other raised hands. Madam Clerk, please take the vote.
Item 12.5.1 Downtown Brantford Priority Plan as amended has carried on a recorded vote of 10-0. Those voting in favor, Councilors Vanderstel, Utley, McCurry, Martin Carpenter, and Oski Van Tilburg, while Mayor Davis.
All right, we'll move on to urgent reports. There's one urgent report. Councilor McCurry, I understand you are the mover. You are the mover to get this on the floor. Could you please confirm that? State your seconder. And
Mayor, you are correct, as you so often are. Councilor Martin is going to be the seconder, and it reads as follows. That report 2022-254, titled Hybrid Meeting Options Phase 2 Expansion, be received, and B, that effective May 2022, staff be directed to proceed with the implementation of hybrid meeting operations for all task forces, advisory committees, and quasi-judicial bodies as outlined in the same report, with the exception of the following. Number one, the Brantford Airport Board meetings, which shall be in person only until such time as the board may request a change in operation. And two, special city council closed meetings, which shall remain virtual until a separate report can be considered by council on that topic. And C, the staff be directed to prepare as a standard execution the streaming of all meetings of council and its committees utilizing a live service as often as possible, effective September 2022, with the following exceptions. Number one, quasi-judicial matters, and two, meetings that contain only planned closed session matters. And I believe that concludes that resolution, Mayor.
All right, it's on the floor. Any discussion? Councilor Antofsky. Sorry, Councilor Martin.
Thank you. We are both have dark jackets on, but yeah, it's council will remember that recently we just got a memo from staff indicating that there's some new equipment that they're going to be using to implement hybrid meetings. And Councilor McCurry and I had the pleasure of trying it out yesterday with our police station task force meeting. And I'm happy to report that it worked extremely well. And we're looking forward to seeing improved hybrid meetings by using that new equipment. And hopefully this is passed unanimously and we can move forward with things.
Right, seeing no further discussion, Madam Clerk, take the vote.
Item 13.1 being hybrid meeting operations phase 2 expansion has carried on a recorded vote of 10-0. Those voting in favor, Councilors Vanderstel, Utley, McCurry, Martin Carpenter, and Toski Van Tilburg, while Mayor Davis.
All right, we'll now move to notice. There are no other resolutions on tonight's agenda. Notice is a motion. Councilor Utley, you've got one. Please read the title.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Discarded cigarette butts.
Right. Councilor Wall, you have one. Would you please read the title of your notice motion?
Willow Bridge Community Hub.
Thank you. So we'll now move into bylaws, first and second reading. And some of the bylaws we already dealt with earlier. One of them. And so Councilor McCreary, you have the honor of reading the motion for first and second reading of the bylaws.
I'm honored. I'm sure Councilor Martin is honored to second as well, Mayor. Thank you. So I move, seconded by my ward mate, Councilor Martin, that leave be given to us to introduce the following bylaws for first and second reading. Number 58, 2022, bylaw to authorize the execution of agreements individually dated and listed on Schedule A attached hereto. Number 1, joint use agreement between the corporation of the city of Brantford and the Grand Erie District School Board. Bylaw number 59, a bylaw to amend bylaw 37-83, being a bylaw to regulate traffic in the city of Brantford, Elgin Street, Schedule 15, combined use pathway, Schedule 16, pedestrian crossovers. Bylaw 61-2022, a bylaw to amend bylaw 37-83, being a bylaw to regulate traffic in the city of Brantford, Forsyth Avenue, Schedule 1 through highways. Bylaw 62-2022, a bylaw to amend bylaw 144-88, being a bylaw to regulate parking in the city of Brantford, the Echo Place Neighborhood Review, Schedule 8, stopping prohibited during certain time, Schedule 10, parking restricted time limit. Bylaw 63-2022, a bylaw to amend bylaw 37-83, being a bylaw to regulate traffic in the city of Brantford, Echo Place Neighborhood Review, Schedule 1 through highways, Schedule 8, speed regulations, Schedule 16, pedestrian crossovers. Bylaw 64-2022, a bylaw to amend bylaw 37-83, being a bylaw to regulate traffic in the city of Brantford, Grace Street at Murray Street, Schedule 1 through highways, Schedule 3, traffic control signals. Bylaw 65-2022, a bylaw to amend bylaw 37-83, being a bylaw to regulate traffic in the city of Brantford, Johnson Road, Schedule 16, pedestrian crossover. Bylaw 66-2022, a bylaw to amend bylaw 144-88, being a bylaw to regulate parking in the city of Brantford, Water Street, Schedule 26, accessible zone. Bylaw 67-2022, being a bylaw of the city of Brantford to relieve certain parts of lots or blocks from the provisions of Section 50-5 of the Planning Act. Bylaw 68-2022, a bylaw to repeal bylaw 47-2021 of the Corporation of the City of Brantford, Social Services Committee. Bylaw 69-2022, a bylaw to provide for the collection of taxes for the year 2022. Bylaw 70-2022, a bylaw to levy taxes on certain railway lands and power utility lands for the year 2022. Excuse me. Bylaw 71-2022, a bylaw to amend bylaw 160-90 to regulate the use of lands and location of use of buildings and structures in the city of Brantford. Bylaw 72-2022, a bylaw to amend bylaw 160-90 to regulate the use of lands, location and use of buildings and structures in the city of Brantford. And lastly, Mayor, 73-2022, a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the council with respect to the meeting held tonight.
Thank you, Councilor McCreary. So we're going to deal with bylaws 62, 63, 2022. They'll be separated because of the conflict I declared earlier. But does anybody any other member of council want anything separated for discussion purposes at first and second reading? Seeing no raised hands. Madam Clerk, let's deal with the items, the bylaws that have been up and separated for discussion purposes, which will be all of those that were read by Councilor McCreary except for 62 and 63.
The first and second reading of all bylaws not separated for discussion purposes, excluding bylaw 62 and 63, have carried on a recorded vote of 9-0. Those voting in favor, Councilors Vanderstel, Utley, Slash, McCreary, Martin, Carpenter, and Towski, Van Tilburg, Mayor Davis.
Great, Councilor Utley, can you take the chair to deal with first, second reading bylaws 62 and 63?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. for, excuse me, for reading of bylaws 62, 2022 and 63, 2022. Any discussion? Please take the vote.
The first and second reading of bylaws 62 and 63 is carried on a recorded vote of 9-0. Those voting in favor, Councilors Vanderstel, Utley, Schlesmer, Curry, Martin, Carpenter, and Toski, Van Til, Wall, noting Mayor Davis's conflict.
Right, we'll now move to third reading. Councilor Toski, I believe you got the resolution, please.
Thank you. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Carpenter, that all bylaws having received a first and second reading be taken as read a third time and be finally passed and signed by the mayor and clerk.
Thank you. And as we did first and second reading, 62 and 63 will be dealt with separately. Does anybody else want anything separated for third reading? Seeing no raised hands, Madam Clerk, would you please take the vote on the items that have not been separated?
Councillor Wall. The third reading of all bylaws not separated for discussion purposes, excluding 62 and 63, have carried on a recorded vote of 10-0. Those voting in favor, Councilors Vanderstel, Utley, Schlesmer, Curry, Martin, Carpenter, and Toski, Van Til, Wall, Mayor Davis.
Councilor Utley, can you take third reading on 62 and 63, please?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Any discussion on these two items? Being none, please take the vote.
The third and final reading of bylaws 62 and 63 have carried on a recorded vote of 9-0. Those voting in favor, Councilors Vanderstel, Utley, Schlesmer, Curry, Martin, Carpenter, and Toski, Van Til, Wall, noting Mayor Davis's conflict.
All right, that brings us to the conclusion, not the final conclusion. We'll still do ward announcements as I sign the bylaws. So Councilor Vanderstel, you're first.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It was amazing to see 1,200 people out throughout all of Brantford. SNA, the Shellers Neighborhood Association, contributed to the 925 pounds that were collected. Kudos to Councillor Utley as well. May 5th, there's a SNA ward meeting. We'll be discussing, among other things, some traffic calming measures, some park naming. And of course, May 15th is the environmental festival in honor of Tracy Bucci, and the Bucci family will be carrying that. It would be wonderful if people would show. Grand River Rafting is supporting it as well, among a number of other people to be mentioned later. Very happy to see that. So come out one, come all. It will be a wonderful day on the 15th. We drop in the river at 9 a.m. and end at Brant's Crossing at around 11-12, depending on how much we pick up. Thank you.
Councillor Utley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd just like to give a heartfelt thanks to council, mayor, staff for my recent loss. And I say that on behalf of myself and my family, we truly appreciate your care. I work with wonderful people. I have wonderful friends. And I had a wonderful wife, and she had a wonderful life with us together. So I want to thank you all for your support. It means a lot. It helps, and it helps a lot. So I wanted to thank you from my bottom of my heart for that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Utley. Councillor Martin.
Thank you. I'd like to congratulate Chuck Beach and the students from Pauline Johnson that organized an excellent tree planting on Sunday. It was difficult digging conditions. As you hit a rock with just about every time the shovel went into the ground, as the mayor can attest to, as we planted a few trees side by side. not much of a race, but we kind of had a little bit of a competition going. And then after he left, I worked with Councillor Antosky and added some more trees into the ground and made for a successful event.
I thought it was like no competition. Councilor McCurry.
Mayor, thank you. I was wondering why so many fingers were covered with Band-Aids of those three councilors this evening. That explains it. Not much to report. I just want to caution everybody that the new always stop is going in at Waxwing and Ash Grove. And apparently some folks haven't noticed it yet. So please take notice of it. And we put it in so you would stop at the corner.
Councilor Antosky.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, the Brandon Neighborhood Association has their monthly meeting on Wednesday, May 4th at 7 p.m. at the Brandon Community Center. So if you're if you live in the area, get over there, see what you can add, see how you can help, see how you can support and be part of all the great things that neighborhood association does. And they're always looking for new ideas and ways to expand and match different demographics in the area. May 10th to the 12th, we've got the ABCD Symposium that's running. This is a great program that runs every year. It's about community development. It's asset-based community development. Several workshops, a great keynote speaker. So look for that online. It's called the ABCD Symposium. Great opportunity to get involved. And the Brent Waterways Foundation Gala is on May 12th. I think it may be sold out, but maybe you'll get lucky and somebody can't go and you can get yourself a ticket. Thanks.
Councilor Van Tilburg.
Yes, earlier this month, there was a proclamation for the day of mourning. And just to remind people, it's the 28th. And unfortunately, it takes a little heavier significance for some residents in the city of Brantford this year, which is quite tragic. We do meet at, I can't recall the name of the park, but there's a park right beside Lauren Towers. Ford View Park, yes, Ford View Park beside Lauren Towers, where there was a tree planted some 20 years ago in memory of the fallen for the day of mourning.
Thank you, Councilor Van Tilburg. Councilor Wall.
Thanks, Mayor Davis. I know I'm usually like a beacon of enthusiasm and positivity for these announcements, but I have to start out with something super serious. It was recently brought to my attention through social media and in-person meetings that there is an abnormal number of school children who are going to school hungry. No lunch, no snack, no food. And we know that this is an issue. There are nonprofit organizations in our community who are working towards making sure that no child has to go hungry. But just think for a second, if you have to try to focus on your lessons or try to do phys ed or try to spend the day in class learning and you're hungry. So the Downtown Central Neighborhood Association and the East Ward Echo Place Neighborhood Association are working together with incredible people, volunteers, and local businesses. And they're currently doing an urgent drive, whether you can donate food or you can donate money or you can donate time to ensure that no kid in our community has to go to school with an empty tummy. And if you can help or assist in that anyway, I urgently ask you to reach out directly to the Downtown Central Neighborhood Association and the East Ward Echo Place Neighborhood Association through their Facebook page, because this is a really big issue and I just want to raise awareness to it. I also just want to give a huge shout out. Earth Day was just a little while ago, and there were so many people in our community who took it upon themselves to do something to help make Mother Earth better because she's sick and she needs help. And if you planted a tree or you picked up one piece of garbage, thank you so much for doing your part. And I hope that we can make every day Earth Day. So those are my two announcements for today. Thank you.
Right, now going to the councillors that have come in virtually tonight. Councillor Sless.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just one on May 7th. I think it starts around 11 o'clock is the kind of the ribbon cutting at City View Park. It's been redone and it looks beautiful. And the neighborhood association in that area has a fun time planned. I think there's bounce castles. There's a number of things going on to entertain the children. And it's an opportunity for those who haven't seen the park yet in its new and it's new dudes, then make sure you get out and see it, because I stopped and had a good look, and they've really done a nice job on it. I think the kids in the neighborhood are going to be extremely happy. So that's on May 7th. If they're there by about 11 o'clock in the morning, they should be able to catch all the festivities. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thanks, Councillor Sless. Finally, Councillor Carpenter.
My ward mate, Councillor Antosky, and also Councillor Wall covered all the ones that I had in my notes. Thanks.
Thank you. With that, all the bylaws are signed. So, oh yeah. How could I forget? Thank you, Councillor Martin. Although it's basically sold out. So glad to tell you that there's a Mayor's Gala on May 30th. Pardon me, April 30th this Saturday. The theme is the Enchanted Forest, intended to promote regrowth, new harmony, rebirth coming out of the pandemic. And the charity of choice, for which all of the net proceeds will be paid to, Kids Can Fly, with one of my most favorite charities promoting reading for children. And it's a program that provides a book a month for children until the age of 5 from the date of their birth, encourages parents to read with their children. There will be a special silent auction where the proceeds will go to the Ukrainian effort. We're going to have Ukrainian dancers, and also there'll be an Indigenous component to it as well. So looking forward to it, and hope we'll have a pretty good time. Thanks. That's it for tonight's meeting.